Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Tell Me Everything. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. Today, I have Daniel Hoff on with us with TIA. He is part of the crew that does over in Capitol Hill, that is working on getting all of our policies out there, speaking on behalf of the brokers in the government, which is super important, especially right now with all the different things that have going on, which I'm so excited to deep dive into. Now, I'll preface this and say at the very end, I had technical difficulties. As you guys know, I have not nailed down how to do live podcasting, but I'm getting better. It's going to be better. So I apologize. But, anyways, let's listen to Daniel Hoff.
Tell me everything. Everything.
Tell me everything.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. TIA 2026, right? That's what you're wearing? Okay. I totally forgot. What a great conference. There's so many people that are here. Hello. Yeah, everybody who's anybody's here. And super fun. I was just saying on the last one, like high school reunion status.
It is. It's just amazing to be in a place where everybody's kind of talking about some of the same issues, what they're working on, what they're dealing from each other. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of the great things about any networking event where you get an opportunity to talk to people and learn from each other and grow collectively, which is just what kind of is at the core of TIA.
Right.
That's why we all are really drawn to it. That's why the organization has grown so much over the last few years, is because when you come here, there's a strong sense of community. There's a strong sense of we're here to help each other. And really it's about how do we build the industry? How do we build the business? And so that's what's amazing about this. This is my only my second year.
Oh, right.
I'm still new to TIA. And so I still am learning about the industry. I'm learning about the organization. And so it's just an amazing kind of time to work every day. I mean, like I do on Capitol Hill and I engage members of Congress. But when you come to places like this, you really understand that what you do when you're talking about the industry and you're talking about legislation, it really impacts people, their employees, what's going on the grounds. It's just an amazing place to be. And having a conference like this is an amazing sounding board for me.
Yeah. Well, and you guys are doing so much. And so I'm glad we're breaking that all down. I'm excited for the policy forum that you guys have in September. They're in DC because, hey, this will be my first time ever going. Every single year it's always on my daughter's birthday. So I couldn't make it, but it ends on my daughter's birthday. So I can leave and then have dinner. And so it worked out this year.
Awesome.
So I'm super excited.
It's a policy forum is amazing engagement. Last year we did 150 meetings with 125 members. It's fully kind of engaged in the sense that we're doing briefings leading up to it. There's a virtual component before it. We'll do sessions with members coming in and talking to the groups before they go and meet with their members of Congress. Then they spend a full day meeting. They'll do anywhere from 6 to 8 meetings. So you really got to get that immersion experience of meeting with your member of Congress, talking about your issues. And it's really impactful because at the end of the day, the most important person that a member of Congress hears from is their constituent.
Yeah.
So you have businesses in those districts, you have businesses in those states, you employ people. You're talking about this is the impact I'm feeling. That kind of personal connection. I mean, I do a great job lobbying. My team does a great job lobbying. TIA does an amazing job kind of putting information onto Capitol Hill and other places. But there's no substitute for person-to-person engagement.
For sure. Well, and I think even as like a American, I think especially with like the culture that we have right now going on with the government, like there's like that weird, everything's kind of weird right now. Like news stuff, we don't trust the news, we don't trust government, like all these things. And I think sometimes as an American, you're like, what can I do?
Yeah.
You know, you're almost like throwing your hands up. So I love that you guys do that. So where it's like, is how it's supposed to be done.
Yep.
You know, like, but most people just don't know that. So I love that you put it together, show up and do your thing, you know?
And it gives people, I find that every time that somebody meets with their member of Congress or their staff, it kind of gives you this sense that the people up there are really actually working every day to try and make your life better. I mean, there's so much goodwill on Capitol Hill that gets glossed over because of the politics or the news coverage or the talking points. But the reality is, I mean, I'm going to say this as I have been lobbying and working with members of Congress for 20 years. 90% of the people up there genuinely have the interests of the country at heart. Now, you might disagree with them on policy.
Yeah.
You might have a substantive disagreement on how we're spending money, but they genuinely want to make American lives better. And you connect with that when you sit down and you meet with them. And it's every time we do it, like just the smiles of people walking out of these rooms, the fulfillment they have when they've had that.
I can't wait.
So, I'm so excited.
I cannot wait. Like I was like, I have to go. My kid's turning 18. So I'm like, I got to be there. It's a big year. But this the last. So I'm like, okay, even if I don't make it to this year, she'll be out of the house after that. So then I'm good. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so this year it works out. So I'm super excited. But why don't you break down for us? And I guess I didn't even do an introduction. This is Daniel Hoff from TIA. You can say your whole, like, what exactly is your title and
So I'm
stuff.
the Vice President of Government Affairs. I've worked in transportation policy for about 20 years. This is all I've done professionally. In fact, my first job, I was 16 years old. I worked for the mayor of the city of Baltimore.
Oh,
So I've only ever worked in politics. When I got out of college, that was my first job, was lobbying and engagement. And I've only really worked in transportation. I've worked in aviation and I've worked in surface transportation.
okay.
So coming back to TIA is kind of coming home for me. I worked in a trade association for 10 years. Then I went into the corporate world. And so coming back here is coming home. And it's for me, the great part about this is dealing with and engaging with members, talking about their businesses, knowing that every day I'm fighting for companies, I'm fighting for employees, I'm fighting for an industry that largely, I mean, in the case of freight brokerages, goes unnoticed, right?
Right.
The people that work in this industry are so good at what they do. They're so effective at it. It is seamless.
It
And
is.
and most people on a day-to-day basis don't understand that the reason the supply chain works is because freight brokers provide that connective tissue. And without that, you don't get any of the products that
No.
you use every day.
Everything that you're looking at. Well, and you know what's funny? Before I entered into logistics, you're like driving down the road and you don't even really notice the semis unless if you're like right next to it and your car's wobbling, you're like, oh crap, I gotta speed up. That's like the only time you ever notice them, you know what I mean? And then the moment you're in logistics, all I do is I'm like, oh, that's that carrier or that's that carrier. Oh, I know them, I know them.
Yeah.
So it totally changes your whole perspective. But I think that's what you just said about like how we kind of make the glue to everything or whatever. That is what it's like. And so I definitely think as a broker we need a voice. So I appreciate you guys doing that. So what is on Capitol Hill? What's coming out? What can we do as, Americans to try to advocate and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
So I'll kind of take it to the baseline so people kind of understand where we are both in the political process and the policymaking process. So
Hmm.
from a from a political standpoint, let's look at the House and Senate. So the House and Senate, very thin margins right now. So
Okay.
we talk a lot about what's the art of the possible. Yes, the Republicans are the majority in the House, the Republicans are the majority in the Senate, and they certainly have the administration with President Trump.
Right.
But it's all about, can you get the votes together in both the House and the Senate to move legislation? And Republicans are not a monolithic group, right? There's factions within the Republican Party. There's
Yeah.
different kind of sets of ideology. There are different kind of driving factors. So we look at, how can we build broad-based coalitions? How can we build bipartisan
Bipartisan.
coalitions?
Yeah.
So that when we start talking about policy, when we go in to talk to people about it, we're not talking about an issue that's necessarily, well, the Republicans are really going to get or this, or the Democrats. This is about, what are we going to bring where we can bring both Democrats and Republicans together around this issue.
Right.
And one of the things that you talk about all of the time, and thank you so much for doing it, is cargo theft.
Yep.
So we have 3 or 4 pieces of legislation on Capitol Hill right now that we're supporting to try and mitigate the impacts of cargo theft. The Safer Transportation Act, or the Safer Transport Act, is introduced in the Senate. It'll be introduced in the House later this week. The Combating Organized Retail Crime Act,
My favorite
Household,
one.
yeah, the Household Goods Consumer Protection Act.
Mm-hmm.
There, just to name a few. There are even more, and TIA is leading a lot of these efforts, or we bring large coalitions with us to support movement of this legislation. The vehicle by which this stuff will move is likely to be surface transportation reauthorization. So if you're not familiar with that, surface transportation reauthorization is a policy bill that moves every 4 to 6 years, and it reauthorizes both policy about building roads, building bridges, regulatory structures, and then it also creates dollars. How many dollars are we
Mm.
going to spend on those things? It's seminally important for this industry, for the broader transportation network. So we work with a lot of different avenues to make sure that our legislative priorities are pushed into that where we can.
Gotcha.
And then we work with other committees of jurisdiction to move other pieces of legislation as well. So that's kind of what drives a lot of what we do. It's, how can we build broad bipartisan coalitions? How can we engage with members of Congress in a constructive way? And then what are the legislative vehicles available to us to kind of move things forward? Because going into this year in particular, which is an election year, we have to be cognizant of the fact that members of Congress are going to kind of focus on the core things they need to get done so they can go home, talk to their constituencies
Yeah.
about why they should be reelected to the
Exactly.
houses.
luckily, I do think the cargo theft, for instance, has been having more screenplay out there on, like, the 60 Minutes things that they've been doing. Unfortunately for those celebrities, but it's great for us in the in the industry. It's like, okay, there's finally some light on this stuff. And so I think because of that, hopefully then the same people know, hey, this is actually getting some light, because it does affect our bottom dollar. I mean, I talk about that all the time. Like, everything we buy, like, I know some like a Nike shoe, their percentage is a lot higher, but there's certain brands, it's like between 10 to 20% markup just from cargo theft, retail theft as well, but theft in general. The cargo theft is, it's different. It's crazy because even like the Corca Act, it is retail theft technically, but cargo theft is in there as well, right?
That was one of the ways, that was one of the things that we accomplished this year working with ATA and OIDA and some others, where we went to the retail organizations and we said, hey, you guys have been pushing this particular piece of legislation for a number of years, and you focused it almost exclusively on retail crime. That is a problem, but there's also this huge problem in the supply chain for cargo theft. So they incorporated a couple of provisions that we suggested, two of which TIA is very supportive of, creating a coordinated data centers for the collection of
My favorite
information
part.
around cargo theft, so that resources at the federal and state level can be allocated correctly, so that we can understand how the crime is evolving. And then the other piece is a coordinated task force, bring together the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, state and local law enforcement agencies, Interpol. So bring in the international component of it as well, so that they're all working together as investigative bodies, but also bring that component from the Department of Justice. So how do we investigate the crime? How do we then prosecute the crime? And then more appropriately, this isn't like somebody stealing a load in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or Philadelphia or LA. How do we treat this like the organized crime that it is, right?
Because it is, yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
Bring cases such that we're treating this like organized crime, and then go after the international component, right? I think we've all talked about it in different ways, but a lot of this is being organized, and the strategy behind it is
100%.
coming out of Eastern Europe and parts of Asia. So we need to go after the syndicates there to stop the crime that's happening here.
For sure. I mean, it's a national security issue. I talk about that all the time, but it really is. It's a lot. It's a lot more than just our bottom dollars as consumers. But I mean, it's scary. Even like the Department of Defense, their contracts that they have, they don't really do a lot of monitoring. And I know there's a lot of great people in the industry that are working with them directly to like educate them on, like, hey, this is where you guys have been falling short. So I think they're making some changes, and hopefully that. But like, as an American, that's scary to know that knowing what I know about cargo theft and then knowing what could happen, it's like super scary. So I appreciate you guys doing that, because, like I said, the Corca bill is the one that I love the most. But I think just in general, having anything in there, because, even talking to like California Highway Patrol, or, I just met with the Arizona PD here yesterday, or 2 days ago yesterday, something like that. And whenever I was talking to them, I mean, they want to help and they want to do things, but they don't have the resources. They really are depending on the private sector to, us giving us, our public sector, whatever it is, to give them like subscriptions to our, our things that we do.
It also comes down to, like you said, that partnership between public and private, but it's also, how do we also change processes at the federal level to, I mean, I will borrow from what Administrator Barr said on 60 Minutes, front door problem. Right. So the FMCSA recognizes that there has to be reforms in the registration process. And to their credit, in this administration in particular, and Administrator Barr's Deputy Administrator Ellison, who will be here on Saturday,
Oh, really?
been leading the effort to recognize the challenges that the agency have and make the reforms, but not make those reforms, 2, 3, 5 years from now. It's
Right.
We know what the problem is. Let's deal with it now.
Please,
And
for the love of God.
so they've done an amazing job with the registration modernization, modus as well. That the changes that you'll see there, facial recognition in terms of bringing new entrants in, and then going back, and they will start doing it in the short term, verifying and revalidating existing registrants, starting to deal with that front door problem. He has publicly said that they have, and then backfilling from there. Right? We talk about investigating the crime and prosecuting the crime. If we can stop the crime from happening in the first place, then
a lot of it is preventable. I know the modus and stuff like that, they did have some issues with basically the bad guy. Every time you come up with something, the bad guys will figure out a way.
Sure.
But I know that they are already working on changing it so that that's not a hole, And that, I think that was impressive to me, learning that, because normally it takes them like 5 years later before they even start looking again, because they're like, well, we just did this. Well, no, you can do little pivots to actually make a difference. So I like that.
I I think I'll go back to it. I've been doing this for 20 years. I spent about 12 years now in surface transportation. I've dealt with multiple administrations, both Republican and Democrat.
Yeah.
The leadership for this particular administration and the FMCSA with Administrator Barr's Deputy Administrator Ellison has been breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I hope when the deputy administrator is here on Saturday, we all give them just a really big thank you for what they've been able to accomplish in a short period of time. So it is about closing the front door. It is about making the reforms. And then it is about bringing legislation in and putting legislation in place, putting penalties in place for,
Putting balance.
uh,
It's not just property crime.
it isn't. And if you're putting fraudulent information into a registration form, there should be a civil penalty for that. So that's one of the Safer Transport Act does that. It also tightens some of the other regulations around how around rations because I think there's a lot of times where people try to draw this line between, safety and cargo theft. A
Yeah.
lot of the things that we talk about on the safety side are directly linked to the cargo
Totally.
theft side. The safer we can make the transportation system,
Yeah.
the more kind of effective we're going to make our anti-theft deterrence as well.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. So right now, like the non-domicile CDLs, English language proficiency, those are already things that have been in place. So there's not really like a new bill that's coming to play, right?
Well, I think that's actually a really good point. And I always try and reiterate when people talk about things like English language proficiency, and they're like, "Well, this is new." English
Yeah.
language proficiency has been on the books since 1937.
37. Wow.
Not new.
I did not realize. Oh,
It
okay.
has been a requirement to be a commercial driver since the 30s.
Yeah.
The enforcement of it has changed. The enforcement of it in Republican and Democratic administrations have ebbed and flowed in terms of what type of violation it is. This particular administration has said it's an out of service
Yeah.
violation. That had been the case years ago, and then it was changed. So again, enforcement, just like in all laws, is there's an ebb and flow. How are we enforcing?
Right.
This administration has taken a tougher tack on non-domiciled CDLs. A lot of what this administration is trying to do is to get the state DMV is essentially to enforce the regulations on the book.
Right.
They did just put into place a non-domiciled CDL final rule, I guess 2 or 3 months ago. That will be basically a slow phase in. So they'll limit the non-domiciled CDLs that can be issued or reissued over the life of the current kind of expiration period.
Yeah.
So it'll be a phase out of non-domiciled CDLs in the marketplace. It won't be the shock that some people have kind of talked about.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes
We'll have to
sense.
see how it works and how it evolves. So obviously there's legislation that's floating out there that will change it.
Right.
Right now, the final rule is basically a slow phase in.
Which I like because I think with non-domicile in particular, it does not always mean they're a foreign entity here for cargo theft. I think so many people like think that it's really not. I think to me, not non-domicile thing. The only thing that's really bad about it is those CDL mills that they had when they're not really being vetted. Our safety on the roads is not there. That part of it is scary. But non-domicile could mean that like you live here or technical address is here, but you drive for a living and you really live out of your truck. So you're getting a license where your carrier is based out of. So that could be non-domicile too. And that's not bad.
I think at the end of the day, when we talk about non-domiciled CDLs, we have to functionally go back to the state that is issuing it has to follow the verification and validation procedures.
Right.
And if they haven't done that, and I don't care if it's California, Texas, or Utah, then you need to go back and look at your validation and verification procedures.
Right.
That's it, right? I think all of
That's
the
already in place,
that-
right? Yeah.
so that's where it really comes down to. From TIA's perspective, those issues are important, and we certainly support anything that enhances the kind of overall metrics of safety.
Right.
But our wheelhouse again is really much more the
Right.
cargo theft component and some of the other kind of brokerage specific pieces. But of course, we want to support our carrier partners. So we have really great relationships with carrier organizations,
Right.
whether that's American Trucking Associations, the Owner Operator Independent Drivers
I
Association.
know it is
fact-
here.
In
Yeah.
fact, Louis Pugh just walked by.
Yeah.
Because he's going to do a panel.
I'm
tomorrow.
really excited about that panel.
So
And I know he was talking about even doing like the Broker Transparency Act thing too. I know as a broker, that's one that's like
Yeah.
it's a hot topic a little bit. Where do you think that will even go?
So obviously this is one area where TIA and OIDA, and I think it's healthy to have disagreements among friends. And we basically take the view that their position of what we would consider weaponizing a 1980 CFR doesn't necessarily make sense for either the brokerage industry or for the independent operators. They obviously take a different view. I think right now, Obviously they're going to continue to push their point of view. We're going to continue to push our point of view and continue to kind of move forward. I think in the other 90% of places we're going to agree and work together. This is
Yeah.
just an area where we disagree.
Well, and I think, like you mentioned before, the bipartisan thing, I think what's great about the logistics industry is a lot of it's not about being a Republican or Democrat, but it is different with the carrier and broker piece of it. So, that one in particular is interesting to me too, because I get where they're coming from, but also I'm like, you don't know what you don't know. Like, unless if you're stepping in my shoes, just like us, like I feel like a broker should be required to jump in a truck for a week as part of your training. I think we both need to kind of think of each other with, in each other's shoes and what makes actual sense.
Yeah, I think on this issue, it really comes down to what's proprietary, what's trade secrets.
Yeah.
You don't go to other industries and say, okay, I want to know what your margins are. I want to know what your costs are. Understand how you're bidding that contract out, how you're structuring that contract. That's my proprietary information. That's how I run my business. We don't want to flatten the market. We don't want to remove competition from the market. We want to make sure that carriers are paid correctly. We want to make sure that drivers are paid correctly.
Yeah,
But
for
there's lots
sure.
of ways to do that that don't include enhancing or weaponizing a federal regulation.
Right.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Is there any other things that are working on right now? Or I know those are the main ones.
Main ones. I mean, we're working on a slew of other issues related to appropriations, related to just kind of government funding.
All right, I told you that I had technical difficulties, so had to cut this one short. But that means whenever I go to the policy form, the TIA policy form, I can do a part two of this and like give you guys updates and do like really cool things with it. So hopefully by then I'll have this nailed down on how to do live stuff. I'm about to do one at TAPA here in a second. So hopefully that goes well. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for listening. Reach out to TIA, become a member. Cannot push that enough that they are doing really great things for the community or the broker community. So definitely become a member and get involved because it's how we make things a better place, right? Thanks, guys.